The evening was still as could be, and that chandelier, the fancy one, was throwing off a real warm kind of light all over the mansion. Jasmine. She was moving real careful through the hallway, carrying a tray with his medicine and a glass of water. She'd been working for Logan Reyes for years, just tending to things around the place, real quiet and dedicated like. The news about him being sick, well, that shook her up something fierce, but she stuck to her duties. Made sure he had everything he needed. When she walked into his room, there he was, propped up in bed. He used to be a real powerful guy, but now he was all thin, and his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, they were full of something she'd never seen before. Pure desperation. Logan, he just motioned for her to sit down. His voice was weaker than she remembered. "Jasmine," he said, his eyes locked on hers, "I ain't got much time left. I got everything a man could want, money, power, the whole 9 yards. But I don't have nobody to pass it on to. I need an heir, and I need your help." Jasmine's heart started pounding in her chest. She was expecting him to ask for something different with his meds, or maybe a new meal. Not this. "Mr. Reyes, I don't understand," she said, real hesitant. "You're a skin me too?" Her voice trailed off, because she wasn't even sure she was allowed to say something like that out loud. Little break here, kind of like a narrator's aside. And hey, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying the story so far. And subscribe for more emotional stories. And let us know what you think down in the comments. Logan just nodded, his face hard to read. "I know it's a selfish thing to ask, and I wouldn't if I had any other choice. But you're the only one I trust, Jasmine. You're kind, you're strong, and you've always been loyal to me." He went on to say, "If you agree to this, I'll make sure you and the child are taken care of. You won't ever have to worry about a thing again, I promise." Jasmine, she just sat there in stunned silence, holding onto that tray like it was a lifeline, trying to wrap her head around what he was saying. She always thought of Logan as just her employer, distant but fair, but now he was a skin for something that could change her whole life. Her hands started shaking as she set the tray down on the bedside table. Her heart was thumping, so loud she could barely hear nothing else. Years she'd spent working for Logan Reyes, and she never, ever thought he'd ask her something like this. "Mr. Reyes, this ain't something I can just decide right away," she whispered, looking down at her hands. She was always just a humble maid, happy with her simple life. What he was a skin wasn't just a favor, it was something that could totally change the direction of her life. Logan sighed real heavy, rubbing his temples. He looked beat, even weaker than the day before. "I know, Jasmine, and believe me, I wouldn't ask if there was any other way," he said, his voice all raw with emotion. "I don't have no family left, nobody to inherit what I built up. I don't have the time to wait around for love or marriage, but I trust you. I know you'll raise my child right." His words hit her hard. She always knew he was a lonely man, but she never really thought about what that meant for him, deep down. He'd spent his whole life building up an empire, and now, at the end of the road, he had nobody to share it with. Jasmine swallowed hard, trying to keep her composure. "Okay, let me know what you think of that. I'm ready for the next section whenever you are." Trying to push back all the fear and doubt that was swirling around inside, she just couldn't shake it. She'd never even thought about being a mother before. Could she really do this? Bring a kid into the world for a guy who might not even be around to see him grow up? "I need some time to think," she finally said, standing up straight. "This just ain't something I can answer right now, Mr. Reyes." Logan, he just nodded, his eyes filled with something she just couldn't put her finger on. Was it hope? Or maybe just pure desperation? She couldn't tell. As she left the room, she felt the weight of what he asked sinking down deep inside her, and she knew that no matter what she decided, things were never going to be the same. Jasmine spent the whole night wide awake, staring at the ceiling of her little room in the servants' quarters. She'd always been happy with her simple life, cleaning those fancy halls, cooking meals, and making sure Mr. Reyes had whatever he needed. But now he was a skin for something way beyond just doing her job. If she said yes, she wouldn't just be a maid anymore. She'd be the mother of his kid. Could she handle that kind of responsibility? Bring a child into the world knowing they might never even know their dad? The next morning, Jasmine was moving around the house like she was in a daze. Her hands were going through the motions of getting Logan's breakfast ready, but her mind was just filled with thoughts about what the future held. As she carried the tray to his room, she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. When she walked in, there he was sitting up, his tired eyes sear chin for hers. "Have you thought about what I asked you?" he said, his voice even quieter than before. She took a beat, setting the tray down real careful before looking him in the eye. "Yes," she said, taking a deep breath, "and I've decided I'll do it." Logan's face just softened, and relief washed all over him. "Thank you, Jasmine," he whispered. "You have no idea how much this means to me." She nodded, still feeling kinda uncertain, but knowing deep down that this was the right thing to do. He'd always been good to her, always treated her with respect, even though they were from different worlds. If she could give him some peace in his final days, if she could give him that legacy he wanted so bad, then maybe this was just meant to be. But as she looked at him, she couldn't help but feel like this was just the beginning of something way bigger than she could ever imagine. The air in the room just felt heavier after Jasmine said yes. Even though she said the words, the reality of what she'd agreed to was just starting to sink in. Logan reached for her hand, his fingers weak, but still warm. "I'll make sure you and the child are taken care of," he promised, his voice firm, even though he was frail. "You'll never have to worry about a thing, not ever." Jasmine nodded, her mind still spinning. She'd spent her life working for him, never expecting anything more than her pay. But now, her life was about to head down a different path, one she never even dreamed of. Logan, he didn't waste no time making plans. That afternoon, his lawyer, "Ready for the next bit? Let me know." That afternoon, his lawyer showed up, starting to draw up all kinds of papers to make sure Jasmine and the baby would get a big chunk of his fortune. As she sat across from this guy in a suit, listening to him explain all these legal terms she barely understood, she just felt overwhelmed. It was all happening way too fast. "Mr. Reyes, are you sure about all this?" she asked, real hesitant. "There are people way more deserving of your money." Logan let out a weak chuckle. "Nobody's more deserving than the woman who's willing to give me an heir when I ain't got nothing else left," he said. Jasmine felt the weight of those words sink in down deep. She always thought of Logan as this distant, untouchable guy, a powerful man living in a world way far away from hers. But now, sitting in front of her, stripped of all his strength and power, she realized he was just a man, longing for something real. She didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time, she understood just how much this meant to him. As she signed the papers, she promised herself she'd honor her promise, no matter what. That evening, Jasmine stood in front of the big mirror in her little room, just staring at herself. She'd spent years wearing a simple maid's uniform, kind of blending into the background of Logan Reyes's fancy estate. But now everything was different. Her heart was thumping as she thought about what was coming. She'd said yes to his request, but that didn't mean she wasn't scared stiff. She was stepping into something she didn't know nothing about, something that would tie her to him forever. There was a knock at the door that startled her. When she opened it, there was Logan, looking weaker than she'd ever seen him. But there was also a softness in his eyes, something she'd never noticed before. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't want you to feel like you're being forced into this." His words really touched her and eased some of the fear she was feeling. "I wouldn't have said yes if I wasn't sure," she replied, her voice softer than usual. She knew this wasn't about love, and it wasn't about no passion. It was about giving a dying man his last wish. Logan nodded slowly, stepping into the room. The silence between them just felt heavy, full of all these unspoken feelings that neither of them dared to say out loud. Jasmine closed her eyes, telling herself to be strong. This wasn't just for him. It was for the kid that was going to come from this, for the future she'd kind of unknowingly chosen for herself. And as the night went on, she realized her life had already started changing in ways she never could have seen coming. The next few days felt kind of unreal. Jasmine kept doing her usual jobs around the mansion, but everything felt different now. Those quiet moments she spent with Logan had a weight to them that they didn't have before. She found herself watching him more, noticing how his illness was just draining him, little by little. Even though he was trying to stay strong, there were days when he could barely sit up in bed. It really pained her to see him like that. All right, I'm ready for the next part. One morning, there she was, standing in the bathroom, staring down at that little pregnancy test in her shaking hands. Those two lines just stared right back at her, confirming what she'd kind of been expecting and fearing all at the same time. She was carrying Logan's child. A whole wave of feelings just crashed over her, like a tsunami. Fear, uncertainty, and something else she just couldn't name. She'd never seen herself as a mom, and yet there she was, holding the proof of a brand new life inside her. Her heart was thumping like crazy as she made her way to Logan's room, not knowing how he'd react. When she walked in, he was sitting up looking through some papers, but the minute he saw her face, he knew something was up. "Jasmine," he said, his voice real gentle. She stepped closer, holding onto that test in her hand. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. For a second, nothing. Just complete silence. Then, out of nowhere, Logan let out a soft breath, and a small, tired smile crossed his face. "Thank you," he murmured, reaching for her hand and squeezing it real weak. "You've given me something to hold on to." Jasmine felt tears sting her eyes. She did this for him, but standing there in that moment, she knew that this child was going to change her life just as much as it was his. Logan's health started going downhill faster than anyone expected. Some days, he barely had the strength to get out of bed. Jasmine stayed by his side, making sure he ate, took his medicine, and rested up as much as he could. Even though he was trying to hide it, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He was fighting, holding on with everything he had, and she knew why. He wanted to be around long enough to meet his kid. The thought just broke her heart. One evening, while she was adjusting his pillows, he reached for her hand, his grip even weaker than before. "Jasmine, I need you to promise me something," he said, his voice barely there. She sat down next to him, listening close. "Promise me that no matter what happens, you'll take care of our child, that you'll give him the love I ain't gonna be able to." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she wasn't gonna let him fall. "I promise," she said real firm. "I'll love and protect our baby, Logan." His lips curled up into a small smile, and he looked at peace. As the days went by, Logan's condition just got worse and worse. The mansion, which used to be full of power and luxury, felt real quiet and heavy with sadness. The doctors did all they could, but everyone knew the score. His time was running out. Jasmine spent every minute she could with him, reading to him, telling him about the baby growing inside her, and holding his hand when the pain got too much. He'd often put his hand real gentle on her belly, like he was trying to connect with a life he might never get to see. Each day was just a reminder that the end was near, but Jasmine held on to hope, praying he'd stay around long enough to meet his child. The doctors rushed into the room, but Jasmine could see the truth in their faces. There was nothing they could do. Logan's breathing was all ragged, and his body was just too weak to keep fighting. She knelt down next to him, holding onto his hand tight while tears just streamed down her face. "Please don't go," she whispered, her voice cracking. His tired eyes met hers, and even though he was in a whole lot of pain, he smiled. "I got to see you happy, to feel our child. That's good enough for me." Jasmine just sobbed, pressing his hand to her belly, letting him feel the little kicks inside her. "The baby needs you," she pleaded. "I need you." But Logan's eyes were already getting heavy. "You're strong, Jasmine," he murmured. "Stronger than you know. You'll be an amazing mother." His grip just weakened, and his breathing slowed down. She watched, feeling helpless and hurt, as his eyes fluttered shut, and his chest went up and down one last time before just stopping altogether. A shattering silence filled the room. Logan Reyes, the guy she used to think was untouchable, was gone. The next few days went by in a blur. The funeral was real fancy, with important people coming from all over the world. But for Jasmine, it was just a painful reminder that he was really gone. She stood by his grave, holding her big belly. The thought of raising this kid alone just scared her, but she made a promise to love and protect their baby. And she was going to keep it. Months later, on a quiet spring morning, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. As she held him in her arms, tears just filled her eyes. "You're a miracle," she whispered. Even though Logan wasn't there, a part of him lived on. She named the baby Caleb, just like Logan had said he wanted to name him a long time ago. Life would never be the same, but as she looked into her son's eyes, she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone. Logan's love, his legacy, would always be with them. And no matter what kind of problems came their way, she would face them with strength, just like he always believed she could. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the story. Also subscribe for more emotional billionaire love stories, and share your thoughts with us in the comments. There you go. The whole story reworked and ready to be voiced by an AI. Hope you like it. Let me know if you need anything else.